2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We will get to some baseball around here, and of course, you can find us out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day for anything you might miss around here. And I've done tons on baseball and giving up home runs and all of that stuff, but it is football season, kind of, sort of, right, Luke? I mean, it is the cutting season. It is the final cut on coming up here over the week, and the Eagles game is the third and always important preseason game. And I think for anybody that watched the game last Thursday night, to think that we're going to bubble wrap Lamar Jackson, that's not going to be the case, right?
Yeah, I think that was a reminder of what you love about him and what terrifies you about him, quite frankly. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, and the Ravens knew this getting into it. They knew long before they drafted him that that's part of his game. That's what makes him special. And you have to be really careful. And I understand it's preseason. And look, I'm holding my breath in the press box watching him take off. Not even so much the touchdown that was called back by the hold, but more so even that, the 2-yard run on the sideline where he should have just run out of bounds. And instead he didn't lower his shoulder, but he stayed in bounds and took a little bit of a hit.
Well, it harkens back to our partner, Coach Billick, right? With Ed, get down, no, stay up. I mean, the only way he's going to score, or, the only way he's going to break one for 52 yards is to do something that it puts him in grave danger, scares the hell out of us, and probably pisses off the coaches, right?
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good example there. and not necessarily that he's going to be in grave danger, but there's certainly the heart rate goes up, right? I mean,
it's a National Football League, right? I mean, everything's grave danger, right? That's part of the trick.
But at the same time, that's what makes him special. That's what makes him stick out amongst the crowd. I mean, certainly there's hope, there's optimism, there's excitement about the strides that he's made throwing the football. I've said to you from the early days of training camp that he has looked more consistent throwing the ball. The spiral looks a little bit tighter. The mechanics look a little more refined. But again, that doesn't equate to 45 touchdown passes and 5,000 yards. He's never going to be that kind of quarterback, I don't think anyone believes. But if he can make the necessary improvements in that area and become more consistent and make a few more plays outside the numbers and continue to be a quarterback who is strong throwing the ball over the middle, then you couple that with the athleticism and you have something really special there. You have something that's unique. You have something that, frankly, the NFL hasn't seen very often in its history, quite frankly. So it's all about bringing up the passing acumen a little bit more and trying to curtail some of those runs that are going to put him in harm's way, specifically not wanting to see him cut back over the middle of the field, not wanting to see him cut back as opposed to running out of bounds or sliding in a situation where you can afford to live to fight another day. So I think Thursday night, it was just a reminder of you're going to have those scenarios, but you're also going to get the spectacular plays like we saw on the run that was called back by a Willie Snead illegal block. So I think there's plenty of excitement, and I think even this week with the Ravens practicing against the Eagles and all-important third preseason game, although I don't know if it's really that important compared to how the Ravens handle it. All the starters will play about the same as they did in the first two games. It's kind of the way John Harbaugh has done it the last few years. But I think the Eagles, with that 4-3 look, with the wide split edge rushers, they kind of play that wide 9 kind of look. I think it's going to be a different look for Lamar Jackson and this offense, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it with these practices and with roughly about 20 plays on Thursday night.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore. Luke out on Twitter and Luke at WNST.net. All right, we talk about these practices and the benefits of doing these things. And, boy, more than anything, and maybe this is 100,000 feet, we should take a deep dive on just preseason in general, right? Like what the statistics are saying, what the numbers are, where the money is, where these awful preseason games are, whether it's Stokes NFL Network, whether it ends careers, whether Antonio Brown's ever going to figure out his helmet or whatever. But it feels to me like these coaches have made this buddy-buddy deal of, I'll fly in from L.A., you fly to see your brother in San Francisco, we'll meet you in Philadelphia, we'll practice, we'll do all of this stuff on the back fields, that's the really important stuff, and we'll invite everybody down for $14 beers and bad hot dogs, and nobody will come, and we'll charge them full price, and the games will suck, right? I mean, that's where we are, and at some point, if Goodell is a leader, right, somebody should pull some people in and say, maybe because we did this in 1958, that we should be rethinking in 2020 what we should be doing to practice, to charge fans for, to turn cameras and lights on. Right? I mean, to me, this thing's broken. The preseason's broken in a lot of ways for me.
Yeah, it's tough to disagree with that. I mean, I think you look at how teams are handling this more and more, and to the Ravens' credit, they haven't sat out all their starters. In the first week, remember, they sat out a few guys on the offensive side of the ball, and basically they're starting secondary. So you still saw Lamar Jackson, you still saw a good number of the younger starters, but you really do look at some of these teams, and it was funny. I had some family over on Saturday afternoon, got together, had some steamed crabs, and I noticed NFL Network was going to have the Browns-Colts game on, and I knew Andrew Luck wasn't going to play, but I thought, get a look at Baker Mayfield, and about 30 minutes before the game, it came out that Baker Mayfield wasn't going to play. So, you had this preseason game that was nationally televised on NFL Network, and there was no appeal watching it whatsoever for anyone other than hardcore Browns and hardcore Indianapolis Colts fans who wanted to see their second and third team guys. I mean, basically how we're watching, Jaleel Scott, Nataro Alaka in the second half of last Thursday's game. So it really is a case of, when you look from the team perspective, you're seeing more and more of trying to keep these guys out of harm's way. I think the joint practices are providing a nice compromise for them from a standpoint of, you're still getting that competition against another team, giving you a different look with different opponents and different schemes, but it's in a controlled environment of a practice where your quarterback's not going to get hit, or your star running back, you're going to play thud instead of live going.
Well, we're not putting Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers out onto the field in these second and third preseason games really anymore. Certainly not the first one, and especially if it's in Canton. And you would prefer, if they're not bubble wrapped, they at least have a red sweater on, and the rule is you don't touch my quarterback, like period. Nobody touches the quarterback. And we don't play under those rules because I'm paying $85 allegedly so that Paxton Lynch can get his head taken off in the third quarter by some guy that's going to be driving a Pepsi truck in 2 weeks. Like I don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking from just a legitimate, what I'm trying to feel, what product I'm trying to put out, what I'm trying to put the Shield on, right, that is of the quality that the Shield deserves if I'm running said Shield for billions of dollars. These games are garbage, and they really should rethink all of this, because it feels to me like John Harbaugh's getting a whole lot more out of Jacksonville coming up here 2 weeks ago and running around in sweatpants, and going up to Philadelphia and fist bumping and buddying and all skate slowly and carefully, all skate. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like to me. And Thursday night feels like, why are you and I getting in our car and going up there unless the pretzels are really good? What am I going up there for on Thursday night? I mean, it's a waste of time on my couch, let alone, taking the risk of driving a car 200 miles on I-95 on a Thursday night for something not like Hootie and the Blowfish, or in this case, Lenny Kravitz.
Right. And I think what it really comes down to is there's a bigger disconnect than ever between what a team and what a head coach and what a coaching staff, and even throw the veteran starters into that mix. The Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady types who've been around so long and know what they need to get ready for the regular season. There's a bigger disconnect between that subset, that group, and the owners, the marketing department, people selling tickets. I mean, there's such a disconnect there as far as, okay, this is what's best. This is what we feel is what's best from a football prep standpoint, but it's not at all in line anymore with what the tickets, the ticket price suggests, and wanting to have a full stadium and wanting to engage your fans for 2 more home games in the summer to get them ramped up for the regular season. You're right. It's broken. It very much feels broken, and we've complained about this and talked about this for a long time. From the time I was a kid, going to see the Ravens play the Packers back in 1996, and
dude, they would be better off charging $10 to anybody that wants to come and watch them practice. They'd make more money doing it that way. They'd have lines. They'd have crowds. If they had seats, if they figured out a way to do it down at the stadium 3 times, there'd be a way to do this to let everybody touch the football team, make every player sweat, make them work a little bit, do all of that without having to bring beer vendors down and scan me through security with 11,000 people sweating their nuts off and wondering what we're doing there on a Thursday night with moths flying around at 10:30. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, Dick Cass, they all know it's horrible. So maybe it's time they do something about it, huh?
Well, and again, I mean, I won't even criticize the Ravens individually as much for it because we have seen Lamar Jackson play, and for the most part, we had seen Joe Flacco play in the preseason, but it's clear where this is trending because you're seeing more and more teams do what Sean McVay did last year, where he held out virtually all of his starters in the preseason, and, well, the Rams went to the Super Bowl, so how important is it really? So I think what you just said makes perfect sense, and I think this is a case where the NFL should take a cue from Major League Baseball and how baseball handles spring training, and I understand it's in Florida and Arizona, but there's no pretense about what those games are, right? I mean, the ticket cost is much cheaper than what a regular season game is, and anyone who goes to it understands that you're not going to see the starting players for maybe more than 3 or 4 innings, especially early in the spring, and you're going to see a lot of minor league guys that aren't going to be with the Major League club whatsoever, but it's a different setting. It's cheaper, and I don't know. I'm not suggesting that moving to neutral sites is the end-all, be-all, but perhaps that's part of the solution. But I think really what you just said, you charge much less, and to me what you do is you make it part joint practice, and then you can still have a preseason game. Why not have let's use the Eagles and Ravens as a perfect example this week in Philadelphia. Yeah, they're going to practice on Monday and Tuesday, and then there's the preseason game Thursday night. Why not